Have you ever wondered if true power lies in the ability to destroy others, or in the silent, unshakable strength of a man willing to swallow his ultimate pride to feed the woman he loves? Today we bring you a story of breathtaking sacrifice and a resilience born not in a polished boardroom, but in the unforgiving, blistering dust of a construction site. In this agonizing and soul-wrenching chapter, we witness a man trading his pristine tailored suits for a life of grueling physical labor, facing the ruthless interference of his own father. But this is also a testament to the fact that when a man is stripped of his empire, his devotion becomes his most invincible weapon. Stay with us to see how pure love can turn the deepest humiliation into a triumph of the human spirit. The relentless midday sun beats down mercilessly on the dusty construction site, transforming this forgotten corner of the city into a suffocating oven of gray cement and grinding machinery. James stands amidst the chaos, his body completely stripped of its former aristocratic armor. He wears nothing but a dirty, torn gray tank top that clings desperately to his skin, soaked in heavy layers of sweat and grime. His once smooth hands are now severely blistered and covered in thick black dirt as he hoists a massive 50-kilogram sack of cement onto his bruised shoulder. Every step forward is a brutal, physical battle against gravity and sheer exhaustion, his muscles shaking violently under the crushing weight. He refuses to drop the load. He is no longer a polished CEO. He is a relentless warrior in the trenches of poverty, earning his family's survival through pure, agonizing labor. From the edge of the site, Diep watches him in silence. Her heart aches seeing his proud frame subjected to such brutal toil, yet an overwhelming joy fills her soul, knowing he is enduring this hell solely to protect her. When the sharp whistle finally blows to signal the lunch break, James drops the last heavy sack, his broad chest heaving as he wipes a thick layer of dust from his face. He walks toward the foreman, expecting the meager wages he had painfully earned. But the invisible, malicious shadow of Mr. Juan has already reached this desolate place. The foreman, corrupted by the tycoon's money, sneers with a cold, mocking disgust. He tosses a few crumpled, dirty bills and a stale, wrapped piece of bread directly into a muddy puddle at James' feet, loudly declaring that Mr. Juan sends his regards and that no one in this city will ever officially hire the outcast son. The surrounding workers fall silent, watching the fallen billionaire. James freezes, his heavily bruised fist clenching so tightly his knuckles turn white. A storm of rage and humiliation surges within him. He wants to strike back, to defend his shattered dignity, but he catches a glimpse of Diep's terrified face in the distance. In a moment of profound, sacred, and noble sacrifice, James forces his anger down. He realizes that his pride cannot buy them dinner. Slowly, deliberately, the man who once commanded thousands drops to his knees in the thick mud. He reaches his blistered, filthy hands into the dirty water and picks up the crumpled bills and the soiled bread. It is a heartbreaking sight, a complete surrender of ego for the sake of survival. Diep covers her mouth, stunned by the sheer magnitude of his love. She runs to him, dropping to her knees in the mud beside him, wrapping her arms fiercely around his trembling shoulders. "You are more of a king right now than you ever were in that tower," she whispers through her tears, wiping the dirt from his humiliated face with her sleeve. Yet they are not entirely alone in their despair. Hidden behind an unfinished brick wall, a solitary figure watches the heartbreaking scene unfold. Poniches. Huyen stands completely out of sight, pressing a silk handkerchief to her mouth to stifle her uncontrollable sobbing. Seeing her precious son, the boy she raised in unimaginable luxury, kneeling in the mud to pick up discarded money, shatters her heart into 1,000 pieces. She cannot reveal herself, terrified that Mr. Hohn's spies will punish them further. But a mother's instinct is stronger than any threat. Moving with the silence of a ghost, she approaches an elderly street vendor nearby. With trembling hands, she presses a thick wad of cash into the vendor's palm, anonymously ordering 2 fresh, hot meals and a bottle of soothing muscle ointment to be delivered immediately to the young couple in the mud. As she retreats into the shadows of the city, she leaves behind a silent, desperate prayer, acting as an invisible shield over the children she fiercely loves. As Jame and Diep knelt in the unforgiving mud, clinging to each other amidst the wreckage of their former lives, an unexpected miracle approached through the chaotic, dusty sight. An elderly street vendor, her face weathered by years of hardship, slowly walked toward the ruined couple. Without a single word, she gently handed them 2 steaming, fragrant boxes of hot food, a bottle of clear water, and a small jar of soothing muscle ointment. She offered a warm, comforting smile, simply whispering that a kind, unseen angel wanted to ensure they did not go hungry today. James stared at the warm meal in utter disbelief, his blistered, trembling hands hovering over the unexpected gift. In this forgotten corner of the world, where his own father had tried to bury him in humiliation, a complete stranger, guided by the silent, agonizing love of a hidden mother, had brought them salvation. They moved to a small, quiet corner behind a stack of unfinished concrete blocks, the chaotic noise of the construction site fading into the background. James sat heavily on the rough bricks, his dirty, torn gray tank top clinging to his exhausted, sweat-drenched chest. His muscles twitched violently from the grueling labor, and his hands were so covered in thick black grime and severe calluses that he hesitated to even touch the pristine, white foam box. Seeing his internal struggle, Diep gently took the box from him. With an overwhelming joy illuminating her tear-streaked face, she picked up a piece of warm, tender meat and carefully fed it to her husband. James closed his eyes as he took the bite, a profound, soul-wrenching sigh escaping his lips. The simple, humble food tasted sweeter and more magnificent than any lavish banquet he had ever hosted in his penthouse. He reached out with a trembling, rough hand to wipe a smudge of dirt from Diep's cheek, their eyes locking in a breathtaking communion of shared sacrifice. In that exact moment, the harsh, dusty concrete felt as warm and inviting as a royal palace. As the final rays of the sun dipped below the jagged skyline of unfinished buildings, a profound silence settled over their hidden sanctuary. The deafening roar of the cement mixers was finally replaced by the gentle, steady rhythm of their shared breathing. James looked down at his calloused, grease-stained hands, marveling at how these very hands, which had once effortlessly controlled corporate empires, now found their truest, most sacred purpose in simply holding hers. He realized that Mr. Han could demolish their walls and freeze their accounts, but the tyrant could never confiscate the divine and profound peace they had cultivated in the mud. This dirt floor refuge, illuminated only by the pale moonlight cutting through the cold steel beams, was their true fortress, built on a foundation that money could never buy. Taking the small jar of ointment, James slowly rubbed it onto his fiercely aching shoulders, letting the soothing relief wash over his battered muscles. He then turned his intense, determined gaze back to Diep. His voice, hoarse from the dust and exhaustion, vibrated with a sacred and noble power as he spoke his vow directly into her soul. He told her not to weep for the suits he no longer wore or the empire he had left behind, because every heavy sack of cement he carried was a brick laying the foundation for their new, untouchable life. He swore that no tyrant could ever crush the spirit of a man who builds a kingdom with his own sweat for the woman he adores. Hearing this, Diep pressed his dirty, calloused knuckles to her lips, kissing them with a fierce, unwavering devotion. She whispered back that she would rather share a dusty meal on the ground with a true king than sit at a diamond-covered table with a coward, and that his exhausted embrace was the only royal treasure she would ever need. And so, dear viewers, we are reminded that the true strength of a relationship is never tested in the comfort of luxury, but in the grueling trenches of hardship. When a man is willing to strip away his ultimate ego, plunging his hands into the mud to shield his beloved from the storm, poverty ceases to be a curse and instead becomes the crucible where an eternal legacy is forged. Jame and Diep have proven that a love built on sweat and profound sacrifice can withstand the heaviest of blows. If you found your heart moved by this touching and meaningful journey of resilience, please subscribe to our channel and share the story. Join us next time as we continue to witness the unstoppable rise of a love that refuses to be broken.
Dưới cái nắng thiêu đốt của công trường, Jame từ một CEO quyền lực trở thành người lao động năng nổ, ngày ngày vác xi măng để mua sắm Diệp. Dù được cha được âm thầm đưa sức ép khiến anh chỉ nhận được đồng tiền rẻ bún và mẫu bánh mì ném xuống nguồn. Jame vẫn biết chọn lòng tự trọng để nhặt lên, chọn tình yêu thay vì danh dự. Hành động ấy khiến Diệp xúc động, còn bà Huyền lặng lẽ theo dõi trong đau đớn và âm thầm giúp đỡ bằng cách gửi thức ăn qua một người bán hàng vô danh.